President Obama gave his final press conference yesterday where he thanked the press and told them it's their job to be skeptical of any administration. He also noted that he would speak out against the Trump White House if he thought that the core values were at risk. And I guess people are saying that should an ex-president criticize current administration? It's not unprecedented. I mean, they do, but I think that he has a different kind of feel for it.
Well, here's the bottom line. You're on the Titanic.
Oh my gosh, we're starting right out of the gates.
Do you warn the crew that there's a berg ahead, and do you tell the captain, turn the boat? That is what we're up against right now. We're all on the Titanic together.
Okay. With a little... Not to be
I think President Obama comes at this from a different place because we have to remember that for 12 years he was a constitutional law professor in Chicago, at the University of Chicago. Sorry, there was something buzzing in my ear. So I think that when he talks about core values under attack, he's talking about constitutional values, and that's something that he has lived to uphold. So we're talking about freedom of the press, freedom of speech, immigration issues. These are things that are very dear to him, and I can't imagine he would ever stay silent about those particular issues.
Well, less death and destruction than Miss Joyful over here. I think it's really important for him to speak out right now, because if we talk on the heels of this election of a floundering party, a party, the Democratic Party, that didn't have a lot of representation or leaders when they looked at people. Obama remains kind of a vision, a leader, but also a vision of hope in the party. And if we don't really have other people to look to, then that's important. And the other point would be the chessboard is all one color right now. You know, with the president, possibly the Supreme Court, the Congress. So I think we do need someone to say, don't worry, we're all represented in democracy, even if it comes in the form of a former leader, former president.
And a citizen.
It's important.
I really liked that George W. Bush didn't speak out, from my perspective.
He did, but not until the second term.
Right. I liked that he had this philosophy. He was asked repeatedly. I remember seeing interviews with him where they would ask him and push him, as reporters often do, to weigh in on the Obama presidency. And one quote I remember he said, which I have right here, "I don't think it's good for the country to have a former president undermine a current president. I think it's bad for the presidency for that matter." And I agree. And the reason is that I think a sitting president, someone who's in there, whether it's Republican or Democrat, has access to information that other people don't have, including former presidents. And I think when you're sitting in that chair and you have that information, you maybe make decisions from a place that none of us can, because we don't have all the information. And I think what George Bush was basically saying was, I'm sort of out of the loop now. I may be judging that man for something that he's doing without having access to the reasons why he did it.
Except that they do. Listen, there is a club. There is a club. Every time a president leaves and the new president comes in, he joins the club. And all of this alive sitting president. Thank you. Yes, I do have some information. As long as all of the live sitting presidents are at the president's beck and call, because that club is the only group of people who know what it's like. And so what...
They like what you're saying.
Yes. But the other thing is, you know, I think that it is very important for people to understand that because we've never had a president like this coming in, he may not avail himself of his predecessors. And it's important that he does, because you don't want someone as a lone wolf getting ready to do something that, you know, the other guys said, you want to take a beat before you say that. You want to, and so I think amongst themselves they will, but I think it's going to be very challenging.
Well, you can't buck the traditions you don't like, because so far, when you look at the press and the way he handles the press, he's saying, well, that didn't work, so we're going to change it. But you can't then say, but I really don't want you to talk now, you left the office. I like that tradition. Like, it's either traditional and it is the way it was, or it's all changed.
But hasn't he said, hasn't President-elect Trump said that he will call on President Obama?
Yeah, but that was before Obama spoke about 5 more times, saying maybe he didn't like some of
I think what Whoopi's saying about the club actually actually is a really good point. But for me, I'd love for that to happen privately. I'd love for people
maybe
who've been in that
nobody's
position.
saying it won't be.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I think President Obama probably has insight that would be really useful to the incoming president. And I think that, absolutely, and I think they all do.
If he
I think
will
they all
listen,
do.
though.
I
If
also
he will
think
listen.
I also think George Bush had insight for President
here's-
Obama.
Isn't there more
But if
pressure
you
when
do
it's
it
open?
if you do it privately, though, I think it looks optically, it doesn't look like you're trying to undermine someone who's in office. I think it looks like you're trying to help.
Here's the problem that Obama will have that no other president has had. He has also, not just that he has insight into being president, but he also has insight into how things affect folks. You know, he's spoken about race 3 or 4 times that I can remember. And one of the times I remember is when Skip Gates was pulled out
Harvard
of
professor.
and he said, listen, this is what happens when you do this. And people lost their minds because they said, well, you just talking to black people. It's like, no, I know how this works.
Yeah.
I know this. So when he says there may be times that he speaks out because it's something that may see that none of the other voices
The other
get.
point, of course, is that, you know, he has a legacy to protect. This administration is posed to completely overthrow everything that he tried to do to move this country forward.
But
so he has an obligation to speak.
You could make
it's
the
not
same
just an option. It's
Well,
not an
the
option.
But you
would
could
be to
make the same
preserve his
argument
legacy.
then when President Obama got elected and had, you know, all branches of government at his side. You could make the same argument that maybe
Well, he
President
didn't have-
Bush
well,
thought he
he
had a
didn't-
legacy to
President
protect.
Bush
not
didn't
do
have
anything.
anything.
No,
but
President
everybody-
Obama
what I'm
is
saying
leaving
is-
with an enormous popularity.
But what I'm saying-
George Bush didn't. George Bush needed to go home and paint his pictures of his bathroom. It's a whole other world.
All I'm saying is that every president feels they have a legacy to protect. Everyone who comes into office and makes something happen
some of
feels
them
they
are
have
right
to
and
protect.
But
some of them are wrong.
here's the other thing. Again, you know, the day after Obama was sworn in, the other side said, we're not going to do anything to help him. That's what they
right.
said.
Let's not forget
It's very
that.
different than what happened, than what happened when George Bush came in. People said, well, how does it that the Supreme Court, you know, we're going to accept it, but, you know, but the Congress and the Senate didn't say, you know, we're not going to help you at all. And that's what they kind of did.
They went
And
even
shut it
further,
down.
Whoopi. They didn't only say that they weren't going to help him. They said that they were going to obstruct him.
That's
They were
right.
going to prevent him from getting
I
anything
think that's
done.
the difference.
There's a big difference.
I don't remember that. I don't remember hearing that. And I'm not, you know, a million years old, but I'm, you know, half a mil. But I don't remember ever hearing that from anyone, anywhere, since I've been aware of what goes on.